Justine, welcome to Everyday Heroes podcast by Kofkin Bond. It's an absolute pleasure having you here. We've known each other for a while now through a mutual group that we're both part of called Club of United Businesses.
Thanks, Tony. It's great to be here.
This is going to be an interesting one for me because I have always been intrigued by your profession in general. I actually have a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists who are actually clients, but more to the point, I've actually just started engaging myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I say started, I probably started about a year and a half ago, but I've gone to a new one for specialists. So one of the things I will ask up front is sometimes when somebody, a male maybe, so I can only speak from a male's perspective, is encouraged to go and see a specialist. So I've felt in the past, for me personally, and speaking to male friends of mine as well, it can come across as a bit of I've failed.
Mm-hmm.
And because for a male to be vulnerable is not always that easy. And even with friends, there's got a couple of really good male group friends and we go out for dinner once a month and we're never vulnerable. We're just having a good chat and a laugh with each other.
Surface level.
Yeah, it's always surface level. It's and talking about how bad our football teams are because we're all bad for bad football teams. So from that perspective, how do you break, because you work with males and females, how do you break down those barriers in respect to them coming to see you? Because I know this is a bit of a long intro, but I've always said, what is the use of going and seeing somebody if you're not going to be totally honest with them at the same time? How do you help break
well
that
said.
down?
Yeah. It's kind of like people that clean their house before their cleaner comes in because they don't want the cleaner to see how messy they are. It doesn't help anyone, right? I just want to circle back before I answer that question. You said, I've always been intrigued about your profession. What are the questions that come up for you around my profession?
Well, first of all, I was historically guarded around a counsellor, trained counsellor, psychologist, psychiatrist. I found I was probably a bit more guarded in who I was in respect to speaking to them and being open. I like to think that I'm an open person, but I also know that I'm very guarded. I only tell certain things to certain people. So my whole life is not out there. The intriguing part is that I don't think anyone knows there's potentially areas where they could certainly improve in their life, no matter what it is. So I was actually about to say there's something wrong with them. So it's until it's highlighted by somebody else, and sometimes it's highlighted by somebody else, and it could be a romantic partner, a business partner, a friend, a sibling or parent. But sometimes it's a case of that, no, there's nothing wrong with me. No, there's nothing wrong with me, until you're forced to say, hold on, I keep repeating this same pattern and the one constant in it is me from that perspective. So I've been intrigued because, we were speaking off air before about the Gottman method. Was Hoffman?
Yes.
And Shenby as well. And there's all these different types of training. And one of my thoughts from the intriguing part was, if I'm going to talk about all the traumas or ills of my childhood, isn't that just going to bring them up to the surface again? Can't I just hide them and pretend they're not there? So there's it's a long answer.
Yeah. Your question was, how do I actually open this up for men and women to feel comfortable? Because it's not just men that are uncomfortable about going to see somebody. And I want to preface this by saying that even though I am a trained clinical therapist, I no longer do traditional therapy, because what I found was there were limitations to traditional therapy, psychology, and it wasn't getting my clients the results that they desired, because there was a certain type of person that I was seeing coming through into my office. So like any relationship, a therapist, coach, client, it's a relationship. And like any relationship, it's not built overnight. It's not built in one session. At the start of a relationship, that takes vulnerability to go and meet somebody new, to walk in that door, to put yourself out there. But the alternative is that you end up alone, that you never get the help that perhaps you need. So we need to take that first step. Is it going to be the right therapist for you, or the right coach, or the right romantic partner for you? Maybe, maybe not, right? But we have to take that first step. Relationships are built bit by bit. And Brené Brown has a wonderful saying that I often refer to as the marble jar, right?
Right.
I don't know if I was speaking to you about this, but
No, but I saw a clip probably about 2 weeks ago on it.
Okay.
Where she actually gave the example. It was brilliant.
Yeah. So, a relationship is like a marble jar, a trust jar. Each time somebody does something or remembers something that makes you feel good and makes you feel that they see you, a marble goes into the marble jar. And when they do something, which inevitably they will do, right? The ruptures are inevitable in any relationship. A marble goes out, right? So bit by bit, marble by marble. And it's the same with a therapist. I was speaking with a client of mine just last night about exactly this. When we started our therapeutic coaching relationship, we were two strangers. And she was testing me to see where the boundaries were. Could she trust me? We had some wobbles along the way, but we kept coming back to it. And so that relationship now between us has evolved to the point where she is absolutely 100% transparent with me. And when I give her feedback, as I do in a very direct manner, she takes it on board and doesn't run.
So she doesn't feel like she's being attacked.
Absolutely not.
She doesn't feel like that. What I've seen is that, and experienced myself, that 5-year-old child thinking he's being told off, even though he's
Absolutely
a 57-year-old father of 2. Yeah.
You can see it. I can see it in my clients' faces when that inner child has been triggered and that inner child is needing something. And all I do is reflect it back to say, what's going on right now? What's the story you're telling yourself right now? What are you needing right now? What is within your capability to give yourself what it is that you're needing right now?
Yep.
That is self-leadership, taking ownership for your emotions, on how you navigate those emotions. That's a part of self-leadership, and self-awareness is also a part of that.
I think sometimes there's a self-awareness. It's the ability to be able to sit back and listen without already putting together your response in your head. So you're not listening if you're just waiting for them to stop talking so you can respond.
Absolutely.
Or also if you're talking with somebody and that person is continually interrupting you, that can be totally frustrating. And then all of a sudden it's just like, you can start to feel yourself building up. You're not listening, so it's, can you just stop over talk? And that's where that, I saw it, the infinity loop, where it's just one trigger triggers the other person, goes back, triggers the other person. And all of a sudden you're in this disagreement, and you're getting nowhere on something that might be very minor.
Yeah, I call it the tango.
Yeah.
Push, pull, push, pull, push, pull.
Yeah.
Right. But it's, the work that I do goes beyond the space of therapy, traditional therapy. And what I do is I go to the identity of a person, right? Because it's who we are. It's who we are at our core that drives everything. It's how we show up. People are like, well, this is how I am when I'm in the office, and this is how I am when I'm at home. But actually at the core, you're the same person. You should be the same person. Brené Brown, again, I was one of the first people to bring her work into the region. So I bring a lot of her work into what I do. And she says, who we are is how we live, love, and lead. But what if you have lost touch with who it is that you are? Right? How do you show up then as your authentic self? And people feel that, Tony. People feel when you're wobbly. Right? You sense it in people. They're hustling to prove their worth.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel good.
Yep.
And then when you meet somebody that genuinely knows what they bring to the
They can
table.
end up actually lying a lot too with that. You can actually start to say, hold on, that's not consistent with something you said last week. Or so, especially if you're like me, who's, you could say, one, gifted, or secondly, it's a curse. I have this memory of everything, like an elephant. I can remember things from when I was 10, like though yesterday. Everything plays out in the movie in my head. So you start to see, hold on, that's not consistent. Is that a bit of mayo to the story, or are you just flat out lying now? So it is interesting then when those triggers then occur, that then somebody becomes very defensive and the other person becomes very defensive because is this person actually telling me the truth or not? I suppose it's something that a good barrister always tries to find a
Well,
trigger
that's the
in
thing
court.
about a lie, right?
Yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Huh? I had a number of clients actually over the years that have shared stories with me of how they've taken on different personas. They've gone to conferences, or perhaps they're traveling, and they take on a different persona. And that's all good and well for a short period of time for a bit of fun. But if you're having to do that over an extended period of time, what's the messaging you're then sending yourself?
You're not being authentic.
But what's the message you send to yourself if you're having to put on a charade, a facade, and you're not showing up as you are? What are you telling yourself?
That you're not good enough.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that you're not good enough. And
Yeah.
over time,
I've
right,
seen that recently. Yeah.
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 that's who you become,
Yep.
right? That you're not good enough to turn up as you are. Last week, I was at a fancy dress party, and I just got off a long haul flight. Didn't have much time to get a costume. I'd ordered one, but there's no way I was walking out in public wearing this costume. And so I had like an hour to pull something together, a wig, a sparkly dress, feathers. And I was like, great, I'm going to go as Jenny from the block. And so I put this dress on that had all these ostrich feathers and this wig, and I went out. And everyone thought I'd had my hair cut. It was a short wig, very striking wig. It was so damn uncomfortable. And those feathers kept falling off and coming up my nose. And the sparkles, I literally had like through the restaurant where you could see where I'd been because there was a trail of sparkles, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I thought about it and it was like, sure, it looked good, but it didn't feel good.
Yes.
And there's a difference between the two. Just because something looks good doesn't mean it feels good. And if something doesn't feel good, over time, eventually that's going to seep through the front, and that's going to impact how you show up in the world.
Yeah.
And I see so many people that go through life not literally wearing a wig, but basically the wig is a metaphor for the facade.
If you are, because you deal with very successful and high profile business leaders as well, male and female, if you are that personality at work, you're a leader, you're a mentor, you're trying to get the best out of your people, you're in charge of the bottom line, the top line, everything. And then you go home, how do you just be partner, husband, wife, father? So it's how do you, especially if your partner has a different, say, lifestyle to you. So it's one of the questions I actually had was here for you actually, and we can touch on this because we can break it the other way around. But it's women who are maternalistic as well. But, you've got children,
Yes.
You've got 2 sons, but you also run a very successful practice and a business and you're very busy. And as a result of that, you have to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, so part of the 5 a.m. club and you do it and you do what you have to do and everything done. But then how do you also, now your children are a little bit older like mine, but how do you show up as a mother at home rather than a counselor, a therapist, a business owner?
It's funny. I was walking with a girlfriend this morning, 6 a.m. this morning.
Because it's your responsibility as well. And that's what, being a single mum or
Yeah,
being a single dad.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I was walking with this friend this morning and she asked me, she said, is it hard in your personal life to separate what it is that you do from who it is that you are? And I said, what it is that I do is in my bones and I can't help but do what I do. But my kids will say to me, "Mum, don't therapize me." And I really, it's a made up word. I really try hard not to, but when you know what you know, right, it's hard to turn a blind eye to it. But it, one of the hard things, I was speaking with my supervisor about this because I said, sometimes like my kids frustrate me, right? They frustrate me. They're not my clients, they're my kids. My ex-partner frustrates me, but again, I'm not his therapist. And she said to me, Justine, you have to understand the difference between your children, your husband. They're not your clients. Your clients are those people who are willing and able to show up and do the work. You don't force your clients to come and sit before you, right? Your family, that's outside of your control.
Mm.
Don't compare them. Let them lead their life, right? And if they need support, I'm the first to reach out and try to help them find the right person for them.
Yeah.
Right. But it is hard. It's like you said before, you said that I have this superpower of being able to remember details back to when I was 10, right? A strength
I
can
also
be
mentioned curse.
exactly. And that's the point,
Yeah.
right? Strengths can be overused.
Yes.
So for me, it's a strength and it can be overused. And sometimes I use it as a protective mechanism, right? If I can intellectualize it, if I can make sense of it, in a way I can avoid it
Yes.
and it keeps me safe.
Yeah.
And that's my go to. And I'm very aware of that when I do. And sometimes the best thing I can do is to just sit there and let it play out.
A lot of your clients, people who use you, once again, successful people in life on the surface, go home and walk around in their tracksuit. So it's, and which is me. So it's when I think it was the author of Elon Musk's biography,
Mhm.
and one of the comments that he actually made, it seemed to be, it was definitely for Elon Musk and a lot of other people that he's interviewed, Steve Jobs, etc., and written their biographies for them. One of the things that he stated was a lot of these ultra successful people seem to have come from some type of or had some type of traumatic experience in their past or in their youth or when they were children, etc. And they've gone out to basically, in some ways, it might be a therapeutic thing to be in the office 20 hours a day or working 7 days a week, or they just got this completely different mindset. Is that something that you've experienced? And from my personal experience, sometimes it can be detrimental to a relationship as well. I say sometimes, not always, but sometimes it can be detrimental to a relationship as well because you're not necessarily showing up for that other person. Or Chris Williamson said it in when I went to see him live a couple of months ago. He said, hands up in the audience, and he was down at the Palais, so it was a big audience. He said, hands up in the audience, somebody who has a parent that has done something to traumatize them or to hurt them. So, and virtually
Everyone.
everyone's hand goes up in the room. And he said, rather than us thinking, say you're very successful in life now, you're doing the work, you from a outside optics, people saying, wow, what a life that person has. Have you ever stopped to think, though, that whatever that parent put you through is the reason why you're the success you actually are today?
Look,
Now, obviously, there's very different
yeah,
extremes, but yes,
it's
yeah,
very broad
yes,
there. But I do believe that it's not necessarily what happens to you, but it's the story that you take from it. I have 5 children in my family. We grew up in the same household, same parents, same biological parents, and yet we're 5 very different individuals who have very different stories of our upbringing. Now, it's I've done a lot of work around this, personally, professionally. I'm trained as a systemic family therapist as well to understand. I'm the second born of the 5 children, second born girl to a Lebanese father, English mother. And the story I carried for so long was that girls are not as good as boys. And so I spent right through into my early 30s trying to prove that I was better than my younger brother, that I could get more qualifications, earn more money, et cetera, et cetera. I was hustling for my worth. That was linked to my childhood and the story that I derived from that I wasn't even aware was driving me. And I think when we look at behavioral change, right, it's all good and well. It can be the spark that fires us to do something. And sometimes it takes a friend, a partner, to actually show us in the mirror, hang on a sec, this is not okay. And it's in that moment we have a choice as to what to do with that data. Do we keep going the way we've always done it? Or do we actually pause and reflect and say, hang on a sec, okay, maybe there's something in this. Let's get curious and dig and see what comes up. And so for me at that point in my life, it was one of those transition points in my life. I did the work and dug into it and really started to understand what were those stories that had carried on from childhood. Now, yes, I see that in many successful people. They're not the ones typically they're not the ones that have worked with me for sure, because we've worked through all of that. Because that's not living your life fully if you're on that train going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right? Sure, you're hitting goals in so many areas, but at the end of the day, that old saying, what do you want to say on your gravestone? What do you want that to say? All that you've achieved, or who it is that you are, and who is it that you are? What's your legacy? What do you want to leave behind? I think in what you said before to that question of, people see what they see, right? People look at me and I'm well presented and, I brush my hair.
You're well spoken.
And so they put together a story, right? But people don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So what I do, and something that I see and have recommended to many of my clients, is that transition from work to home is really important. So for me, when I finish my work, I change my clothes.
Yes.
I change my clothes to take off what I'm wearing, right? And my kids know it too.
You wear feathers and tassels.
Yes. I wear that to Bunnings.
Yes.
So my kids saw me today as I was walking out. Oh, Mum, where are you going? I said, I'm going to work. Oh, but you're dressed. I said, yes, I've got client sessions. I'm doing podcasts. And so they know, right? I'm in work mode. When I come home at the end of the day, this will come off and my cashmere tracksuit will go on. And then it's a mindset shift, right? When we do that here I am. I'm still me in this, underneath this, and I'm me in the tracksuit, right? They get the same person, but it's sending a message to me, time to switch off.
It's a great explanation, actually, because when COVID hit, I still got dressed up to work from home. And I wasn't a case of tracksuit down below and shirt and, jacket up top. So I actually got dressed up because I was in work mode and I had to be, and I hate working from home. In fact, I can say I'm not very good at it, or I can say I'm not disciplined. I just don't like it. More to the point, because you can do it. I just don't like doing it. And also too, as a result of that, I found you can end up being that real creature of habit. So as an example, I actually gave it to one of our podcast guests. I think it just came out this week, with our Bubs Fahor, who owns the George. And I spoke about the fact of with food, and I had to stop saying that I was addicted to chocolate I was actually addicted to sugar because I could have had a 90% chocolate, but I had the milk chocolate. So I was addicted to actually sugar. Then I found somehow, miraculously, my car turned into the 7-Eleven every night on the way home to buy a chocolate bar. I don't know how I got there. But to change that habit, I actually had to change the way I drove home.
Yes.
And it took an extra 5 minutes to drive home, but I didn't have that automatic dopamine rush of I'm near the 7-Eleven at Johnson Street. So it's,
How long did it change? How long did it take for that to then become the new habit?
I think for me, it was a case of once I acknowledged it and I drove a different way home. And then by the probably third or fourth time, that was just the way I drove home now. So I didn't even think about going the other way, which was quicker. And so it took, for me, it was getting into that mindset of this is the new way I drive home. And even where I've just moved about 3 or 4 months ago out to the northwest, from Kew to the northwest, and I purposely take main roads home and the freeway so I don't drive past a service station or a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
So I've just thought, well, if I do drive past a 7-Eleven, can I drive past it, without stopping? The answer is yes. So I gave myself a little treat now, and that is that I will, every time I fill up with petrol, I will buy one small chocolate bar.
There you go.
Now, it's interesting too, because about a year and a half ago, I sold my V8 and bought a hybrid. So I fill up probably once a month now. So as a result, also,
Interesting.
so I'm actually just, when I do fill up, so I don't fill up because if I got half a tank, I still wait for it to go down to nothing before I actually fill up. But it's just, once again, I'm now just buying that chocolate bar at the service station when I fill up with petrol once a month.
That's when we look at behavioral change. You're aware of the issue.
Yeah.
And then you learnt skills to actually navigate it.
Yeah.
And you then embodied that, and the change has been made. Oprah was out here, was it last year? Oprah was out here.
November last year.
Yeah. So I went to see Oprah. She said something really interesting. So, it's widely publicized, her struggle with her weight.
Yeah.
And she talked about obesity. And she said, once I realized that obesity was the gene, right? And that she had that, it was a disease, right? She saw it quite differently. And she said, the disease, or the gene loads the gun and the environment pulls the trigger, right? So as you talk about sugar, right? The sugar addiction, that's the disease, and that loads the gun. Okay. Your environment, i.e. going by all the 7-Elevens, that's the environment. Okay. So what you did was really smart. You changed your environment because you knew you had that gene there. So I have a predisposition to perfectionism. Like a lot of high achievers, high functioners, a lot of people that I work with, I have the perfectionism gene in me. So when I find myself in situations where I'm surrounded by people that I deem to be more successful or more qualified than I am, that can be triggering for me. So I have to be really conscious. It doesn't mean I avoid those situations, right? But I acknowledge exactly what it is I'm going into and remind myself, what am I needing in those environments to ensure that that trigger's not pulled, so that I don't go and shapeshift to try to fit in.
Yeah.
Puff up or shrink down.
Well, I also know, though, and this is the part of the story I didn't tell, is I know why I was doing that as well. There was the dopamine rush that came from the fact that I was going through a very, very stressful period in my life, and having to part ways with a very dear friend of mine who worked with me for 10 years, having to reorganize the business, going through a marriage breakdown as well. And basically it was a case of that I found myself just working back, because I was working too many hours. I was back working 80 to 100-hour weeks, and not too many 100-hour weeks, but predominantly more around the 80 mark. So as a result, that dopamine rush that came from I'm stressed, going and having that chocolate bar. So changing way home was great. Changing everything else that I had to go was the hard part. Driving home a different way, but actually, first of all, acknowledging what has to change, how do we change it, and still keep relationships. In other words, don't burn the bridges.
But that chocolate and the working, part of that is numbing.
Yes,
right?
absolutely it was.
And
For
it's
some
like
people, it can be alcohol or cigarettes or gambling, but for me,
shopping, drugs,
Yeah.
all sorts of things,
Yeah.
right?
I don't have too many suits, but that has nothing to do with stress. That's just I like suits.
Well, it's why online shopping, during
Yeah,
COVID,
yeah.
went through the roof,
Yeah.
right? People were needing that rush. People my gosh, I bought sequin dresses, I bought shoes, I bought, like a lot of people, I bought activewear during COVID. It was, a lot of people were numbing in different ways. But I think you nailed it there where you said, that awareness, but it's still surface level.
Yeah.
Right. And we need to go beyond that because it impacts, and the work that I do, people often ask me, so I asked you at the start, like, what were you intrigued about my profession? So when I'm introducing myself, I call myself an identity architect, and people are like, well, what does that mean?
I wrote that down.
Right?
I did see you put that somewhere. Yes.
What does that mean?
Yep.
And it came from my life
The anti-therapist.
Anti-therapist.
Yeah.
It came from my life I was married to a hotelier.
Yeah.
And I've lived in 5-star hotels for decades. And people think, oh my gosh, that's so glamorous. Like, wow, like what a life. And it was like being Nemo in a fishbowl, or like being a bird in a gilded cage, right? You were literally on display 24/7. As soon as I walked out of my hotel room, which was actually my home, level 38 in Hong Kong, from the outside, it just looked like any other hotel room. And yet it was half a floor of, 8 hotel rooms merged together to make an apartment.
Yeah.
I would walk out and you were on display. Everybody knew everything that was happening with me, with my children. Back of house, there would be signs that would be Justine Campbell, her likes, her dislikes. Like there was like a biodata on each of us, right? Now, here's the thing about hotels. You walk into a hotel and you see the lobby, you see the beautiful floral decorations, you see the staff perfectly dressed. What you don't see is what's going on back of house. And what's going on back of house directly impacts on how the front of house looks.
Yeah.
You might not see it immediately, but eventually it comes out if the back of house is not working. If the departments aren't talking to each other, if there's a crack in the system, eventually that's going to leak, right? And so after living in hotels for decades, I realized, well, actually, people aren't too different because the sorts of people that I work with look not too dissimilar to a hotel lobby. They look perfect when you first meet them. They look like they've got everything together. And yet when you scratch the surface, hang on a sec. There's issues in the marriage, children, their health, their business, their friendships, whatever it is. There's stuff, and everybody has stuff, right? And that's the back of house. And so the work that I do is ensuring that the front of house aligns with the back of house, that your life feels as good inside as it looks on the outside.
Yeah.
And that's the work.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not tidy. We have to get messy. It's like doing a wardrobe clean. I don't know if you've done this before.
I did moving house.
Okay.
The Salvo's got a lot of stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
You pull everything out. And
I haven't worn those jeans for 14 years and I'm not going to start now. So.
You're not going to fit back into them?
No, they can go.
We pull everything out and we work out, well, hang on a sec. What's still serving me, right? What needs a bit of a refresh? What needs a total rebuild? And then we do it with intention. We step into that next chapter, a chapter that we have designed by intention. So that's what I do.
My father, who's been gone nearly 10 years now, most beautiful, amazing man I've ever met. He's just such a great role model. Best way of describing him, he was a bit like Ted Lasso.
Oh.
So he was not quite as funny, but a bit like Ted Lasso. But I remember he made a comment to me once and I actually ended up drawing a tattoo which was in some way owed to him, which I now have on my arm, which I always hide. I've now got it on my arm. And the first part of it is the 2 theatre masks, the happy and the sad theatre mask. And that was based on something. He had a really good conversation with me once, and he said, "Stop wearing masks." Yeah, he said, "I know your home life, you're struggling with it. But people are seeing the 55 staff, people are seeing, the everything. So, all the surface level stuff, but they're not seeing you." And that really hit me. And I made a lot of changes based on that conversation. But another thing Jefferson Fisher said the other night when I went to go and see him, and once again, this is my father, he used to say, "Bite your tongue." He said, especially when you're talking to your mother. She's very quick. My mum said, "Bite your tongue and count to 10." And one of the things that came from that was, when Jefferson Fisher said, when someone's talking to you, if you're starting to feel a bit heated or your heart rate's starting to raise and you are dying to just respond to tell them how wrong they are, that's that sort of child wound that is coming up in you. He said, just pause after they're finished talking and just sit back, pause, take it in, pause for several seconds. He said it's very uncomfortable for both of you. And then if you actually feel hurt, rather than responding saying, "That's crap though," just turn around and say, "I'm sure you didn't mean to hurt me, but just to let you know right now, I'm not feeling great by what you said. Can you explain to me maybe a little bit differently of what you meant?" And I just thought, wow, if I could have said that for, over the past 57 years, I was 55, I suppose, I wasn't talking to him, but just being things like that. And I'm going to preface that to something that I did see you wrote, which was, be curious, be courageous, be you. And that be curious thing, which is, a line that I saw in Ted Lasso, which I thought was magnificent. But when the be curious, can you explain? So I'll get you to explain what all three mean. The be curious, be courageous, but also the be you. So if you could give an explanation of that.
Yeah. I want to circle back to what you said before when you said, you're dying to respond.
Yes.
But the irony is you didn't respond, you reacted.
Correct. 100%.
And the advice that you were given to pause, it's in the pause that enables us to actually respond rather than react. And owning our feelings, often, I remember when my kids were young, they would say something and I'd be like, ouch, like literally, ouch, that hurt, right? And you said that so well too, to lean in, can you help me understand? And that's the curiosity bit. And that's where to notice when you've been triggered, what's going on here? I'm curious, right? What am I needing right now? What's the story I'm telling myself? And so in life, I always look at like what it is that we see, the surface level, but what could be another explanation for this? Where's the evidence, right? And so I'm always looking at people, tell me more, help me understand. Everybody's got a story, right? Let's dig and let's go beyond that. But in order to be curious, we have to own who it is that we are. And I remember when I was in Hong Kong, I used to supervise a number of master's counseling students that would come in. And a number of those master's students came from a teaching background. And it was interesting how the teachers would come into their therapy room with a lesson plan. And they would sit in front of the client and with their lesson plan for the session. Sometimes they'd have a laptop and it'd be like, whoa, this is not going to work, right? I need you to be present with the person sitting before you. Because if you're not present, you're not able to be curious and you're missing the stories. And everybody has a story and people will feel it if you're not truly present, right? Behind every action, there is a positive intention. You might not like the action. You might not like what the person has done, right? But there was a positive intention behind it. If my child, and they have done this on a number of occasions, lies about something, of course I'm annoyed, right? That's not okay. But then I'm like, what's the positive intention behind this? They didn't want mum to get angry, right? They wanted to be able to do this. They wanted to connect with their friends, whatever it was, right? If we can do that, and if we can step out of judgment and into curiosity, it opens us up to connect with another human being. Whereas if we come at it from a place of judgment, well, that actually puts a barrier between you and the person it is that you're wanting to connect with ultimately.
Yeah.
So that's the first part of be curious. Be curious, right? The next part is be courageous. And this circles back to what you said at the beginning, the question that you asked about, um, being intrigued about my profession. And that's incredibly vulnerable to go in there. And I'm not sure that I'd be okay by actually like bearing wall to a complete stranger. And I'm with you on like that. And you're not expected to go in and verbal diarrhea and open everything in the first session.
Sometimes, though, it can be easier than doing it with somebody you know.
It actually is quite often,
because
right?
you don't want to show the parts of you that you don't like to somebody you know.
Yes, but you still need to have that level of trust to be able to do that, and that's up
Absolutely,
to the
yeah.
therapist to build that safe space for you to do that. But vulnerability is that definition of courage, right? And as we spoke about off air before, this interview, it's when you go into a new relationship, there are no guarantees. When you bring a child into this world, when you start a business, when you start a new job, when you go for an interview, whatever it is, that is vulnerability and that is courage. So be courageous. I see people going through life and they are playing small, right? They're playing safe. And they're missing out on all that this incredible world has to offer us.
Being courageous, though, you still have to be authentic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's sometimes where I've witnessed where somebody is being very courageous in respect to what they're saying,
Yes.
but they're not. That's not who they are, or they're not living, or they're, as a colleague of mine used to say, putting a bit of mayo on the story.
Yeah. They're making it palatable. But that then
Yeah.
comes back to that third part, which is be you.
Yeah.
Be you, right? When I was wearing the outfit last week, as soon as I could take that damn wig off and actually scratch my head, and there was a shift in me.
Were you playing a guitar in that clip? Because I did read that post. Yes, I did read that post.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh, hallelujah.
You did look like having fun, but it was a good post too.
But then I'd taken the wig off.
Yes.
By then.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't think of it with the short hair, because,
Yeah. Because then I could be free. I was still wearing the dress, but that was okay.
Yeah.
And by then I'd lost so many feathers and so many sparkles. It was like, but I was being me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too with it's one of my leading values is authenticity. So it doesn't matter if I'm working with royalty, politicians, heads of state, families, they get the same me.
Yeah.
Who I am is how I show up in all domains of my life. Right? It's how I live.
The be you part, I think, is something great because that is about being authentic. It is being about understanding what works for you, what doesn't work for you as well.
And not being afraid to actually ask for what it is that you need.
Yeah. Is that sometimes also setting the boundaries in a way? And an example I use was I was a single dad for 4 years with my sons. It was just me and them, the three of us. And I always said, because they get to those teenage years and they're two young boys and they're a little bit rebellious.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yes. So it's we got through it. So it's 29 and 27 now. So it's they're living a great life, both of them. But it was interesting because I used to always say, these are the rules for all of us. They go here. We get to there, we're okay. We get to there, we got an issue. And that goes for me as well. And we used to have those, and it was really quite interesting too, because I did try, and I spoke to you off air about the dynamic with my mum and dad. But I think because my father was that calmer, in some ways, matriarch in the family as well, not patriarch, but that person who you like, to the day he died, I always held his hand. I always held my dad's hand, and my son's openly affectionate as well, with males. But what was actually interesting is that you looked at that dynamic, and sometimes I had to be dad. And I had to be dad. Sometimes they just wanted me to go out the back and be rough and tumble with them, and when they're teenagers, they hurt a bit. And they hurt me a bit physically. But then also, sometimes you had to be that softer side as well. You couldn't just be one or the other. So, I mean, and I think that's, where we do have a lot of single mums and single dads nowadays as well. Sometimes just those different dynamics. Now, for me, I did have two boys. You've got two boys. But I've often wondered if I had, like myself and my sister, if I had a boy and a girl, would I have been different? Would the dynamic have been different? Would I have been, so there's, especially say if I had a daughter and she was a tomboy, my sister was a tomboy growing up, so we always got along really well together. We still do today, as well. But would that have been different, if there were two different?
See, I actually also have a daughter
Yeah.
in between
Oh,
those.
okay, yeah.
She lives in Hong Kong
Yeah.
with her father. But I look at my boys, and I don't think it's a gender thing. So I just want to preface that by
Yep.
saying it's not a gender thing. My two boys, my oldest has gone into clinical psychology, and then the youngest one, not sure where he's going to end up. Both of them are 6'1", 6'3".
Yep.
They're huge boys. And then my daughter is taking a gap year before she decides what is next. And I have been a single parent for 8 years now, and through COVID. And, we talk about, because what you're referring to is an energy thing. Okay. And, the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And because of circumstances as a single parent, I had to really take on that masculine energy a lot of the time to just get stuff done, right? And I wanted to be that nurturing, present mother for my children, but because of circumstances, I had to do both, right? But I was very aware of the toll it was taking on me personally, that I was having to be too skewed in one direction. So I proactively went out to actually get support to balance that out, so it all didn't fall on me. So looking at school where my boys could have strong male role models, I hired a male nanny.
So did they go to single-sex schools or
They
co-ed?
went to single-sex schools.
Yeah.
My son now, my one that is still at school,
Yeah.
has gone now to a co-ed school.
Yeah, I sent my boys to co-ed schools so they could actually grow up with girls.
And I think he's at a boarding school.
Yeah.
So he gets the best of both worlds. That he's in a male house, but he still has the girls. But, I look at my son and his style. He's not my eldest son, rough and tumble sort of one. But what he needs is that deep, those deep conversations.
Yeah.
One-on-one conversations, which is great.
And he's gone to psychology.
He's done clinical psychology.
Yeah.
Clinical psychology.
Clinical psychology.
Which is different
Yes.
to what I do.
Yeah.
Clinical psychology. And he's also working in Hong Kong. So, he went into that area. We have deep conversations. And then my youngest one is more the quintessential masculine type energy, testosterone filled. I went to the gym yesterday. He wanted to come with me, and he just criticized the weights that I was lifting. Oh, it's like.
But he's 6'3", isn't he?
He's 6'3". He's 6'3".
So I'm assuming he's pretty strong as well then.
He's very strong, and he looks at me and he's just talking about like body, and they're all focused on wanting to be lean. And I said, "What's the difference between lean and skinny?" He says, "Well, Mum, you're skinny, and I'm lean." And I said, "Wow,
Okay. Yeah.
wow,
Mhm.
right?" And so, with him, it's what he's needing is different. So each child, not so much gender, and then my
Yeah.
daughter is different again.
Yeah.
Each child is different, not about gender, but what it is that we're needing. And when you're in a single parent household, it's very hard for one person to give each child everything that they need,
Yeah.
right? But ultimately, what they need is that secure base, to know that that parent, even if it is just one parent, right, is there absolutely for them.
Yeah.
I was at Cirque du Soleil last week and they came out and they were doing the high ropes.
I went to it just before I went overseas. Brilliant.
So,
Down in Flemington?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And so the one where they're on like the unicycle and they come out and I'm sitting there in the audience and I was with my girlfriend and her children and she has one that's 9. And he's like, Mom, that's not fair. They've got a net. And I didn't think they'd have a net. And it's really interesting that he noticed the presence of the net. And I look at this and I use this as an analogy for life, right? How would you feel if you were going to come out onto that high rope on that unicycle? And I don't care if you're a Cirque du Soleil contortionist, right? If there was no net underneath, no matter how many times you've done it, would you feel okay to come out? Would you feel okay to do the tricks that they were doing, jumping over each other? Absolutely not. Because that net represents your secure base.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we give to our children. Yeah. Sometimes we mess up and sometimes there's a hole in the net and we need to repair it. Right. We're human. We're not perfect. Right. But it's part of that secure base. And as we grow as adults is ourselves, is the work, right? Is knowing ourselves, is being there for ourselves, is showing up. And when that inner voice comes, that inner child in us is needing something, is actually giving that inner child what is it that they're needing. And quite often it's reassurance that I've got you, that you are safe, that secure base is there.
Yeah.
That was a long-winded way of saying.
No, I think it's a brilliant answer. It's one of the analogies that was put to me just recently, which I thought was a brilliant way because I do think in pictures. That's how my mind works. And it was when it comes to your emotional intelligence. So, when it comes to my emotional intelligence with my job, I know it back to front. I've been doing it for 34 years. You can spot when somebody doesn't quite understand what you're saying, but doesn't want to say it and doesn't want to ask you. So these are all cues. Doing it for 34 years, it's you pick up on these things quite easily. But one of the things, the analogies that you use me is, it was I go to the gym, which I have in my garage. So I've got a great setup in my garage every day.
You say you go to the gym.
I do. I walk down the stairs into my garage, but it's a fantastic. It's better than most gyms. I don't have to talk to anyone in the morning or wait for the equipment I need to use. But I go to the gym in the morning and I will do my session that is set for me, and I work on my physical health, and we're talking about how much grams of protein we need now and things. So I'm working on that, and I do have help with that. He's a great personal trainer as well, and he puts the programs together for me, and we check in every Tuesday with each other. And then I've also now have to be very careful on what I eat as well. So I work on that every day. But it's interesting that we don't work on our emotional intelligence on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So on my physical health, I work on every day. Now, my goal is to live to 105. And my father live well. My father had Alzheimer's. My mum's got mobility issues, and that's just not going to be me under any circumstance. So I try to live a very healthy life, avoid the chocolate on the way home, and do everything right. But it's interesting that we don't do that little bit of work every day just on our EQ.
Yeah.
So it's what?
Well, it's like we brush our teeth every day.
Same way as well.
That's hygiene, dental hygiene.
Yeah.
But what do we do for our emotional wellness?
Yeah.
Right. And that's those little things that we can do. What's the story? What am I needing right now? I mean, I drive to get to my gym, and it's not
You're
just
disciplined.
I'm at 5 o'clock in the morning and
Yes.
it's pitch black.
Yeah.
And nobody talks to me. Nobody talks to anybody at that time of the morning, and it's great. 5:30, I'm there at my gym in the red light, and 6 o'clock class.
Yep.
6:45, I'm in the boots, and 7:30, I'm home. And I've barely spoken to anybody in that time. But it's not just the physical exercises, those classes that I'm doing at the gym. I do things like the sound bath. I do the infrared, and often I'm in the infrared sauna with a friend and catching up. I'm in an oxygen chamber with no devices, and that's my time.
You go to St. Haven, do you?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's the only place I can think of in Direct that has all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all for my emotional wellness, right? I see a therapist myself. So once a month, that's maintenance.
Yes.
Right? I see my supervisor also once a month as a therapist. I don't need to see them that often, but I do that. Again, that's emotional hygiene.
Yeah.
Right? I'm constantly looking at my friendships and checking in. How's this working for me? What's not working? And I speak my truth constantly, right? And I can do that because I've done the work.
Yes.
I had a conversation with my very, very dear friend the other day, and something had happened to her, and something quite devastating. And she didn't tell me about it. And she had come like 4 days after it had happened and told me. And I said to her, because first person that she called when it happened was her husband. And she refers to me as her she husband. Okay.
Yep.
And I said to her, so you called your husband when it happened, and I'm your she husband, and yet you didn't call me. And she said, I didn't want to worry you. I said, and yet you called your husband. I said, you didn't give me the chance. I said, I need you to tell me that, God forbid anything like that should happen again, that you'll call me and tell me.
Yeah.
Because that's how relationships work.
Yes.
It's not just the good times.
Yeah.
It's everything in between, the good, bad, and everything in between.
Yeah.
And I can speak my needs, not in a judgmental way, but very clear. This is how it made me feel, right? And this is what I need. And when you have two people in a relationship that are really grounded in who they are, you can do that.
Yeah. Do you think people can change?
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
If the desire is there, I believe they can change.
Yeah.
If the desire is there, right? If it's deep enough.
Yeah.
The problem is people want to change at an intellectual level, but they're not prepared to actually do the work.
Yes.
Right? You look at people on GLP-1s at the moment, to lose weight, right?
They won't go to the gym.
And they won't go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right? They won't change their eating habits. They're starving themselves. And sure, they're losing weight, but
they're not becoming overly healthier.
They're not becoming overly healthier, right? They're not actually, it's just hard work to go to the gym 5 times a week to do the work, right?
It can also be very therapeutic as well.
Oh,
the endorphin rush I get, I've always said, there's so many times I've never felt like doing it, but I've never once finished and said, I wish I never did that.
yes.
Especially I need to buy a sauna at home. Oh, I've had a sauna. I love a sauna.
I love my saunas. I even like my walks. There are 3 women that I walk with every week.
Yeah.
We have a standing walking engagement. It's in the diary. 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. we start. We walk for an hour to an hour and a half, and we talk. And that's also part of my, emotional wellness routine.
Yeah.
But it's when I actually sit down and look at the amount of time that it takes. If you think about, okay, the gym, the various classes, the walk and talks, right? That's a lot of time each week.
It is.
Right? So how do we do that? How do you find that time? And I think you perhaps have found the same thing. We're similar age, is that we become more intentional about how we're living, like alcohol, what we're putting into our body, because we're much more aware of the impact that has on how we show up
Correct.
in the world, right? We have one glass of wine and we're going to feel it the next
My
day.
whoop actually tells me how much I felt it the next morning.
My
Yeah.
ordering
Yeah,
tells
so
me,
it's
right? It
yep.
actually will pick up. I had, even when I'm flying, it picks up.
Never been a drinker. I've only been drunk once in my life. It was my 21st birthday.
Gosh.
Yeah, so it's,
I've been drunk more than that.
yeah, I mean, I'll have a drink, but I've never been a drinker.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so I did have a huge bar tab on my phone at Christmas last year, Bella, and I can't remember buying any of those drinks as I walked out sober and drove home, but somebody got my card, corporate card, and
Oops.
it was like, wow, $600. Yeah, it was well done. No, so Bella and a whole lot of others in here just got hold of the card and went for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you don't drink and you see people that do and the shift. I organize these.
The shift in their behavior and
the shift in their
personality.
behaviors.
Oh, yeah.
So I organize these dinners quite regularly. Every couple of months I do a dinner, very intentional dinner. I've only done it with women. So I should do it with men, bring men around a table. And these are intentional dinners with a theme. So there's a topic for the evening and I curate the evening. Maximum 18 people around the table. And what I've noticed from when I first started them to now is there's not a lot of drinking involved.
Yeah.
If anything, it's 1 or 2 glasses maybe. Because people want to be truly present in the conversations that we're having. Right? They want to show up. They want people to truly see them. Again, that's about creating that safe space to be able to do that. So often we hear people, I need a drink. I need a drink to like liquid courage. Do you? Or is that just like the chocolate?
Absolutely.
It's the story.
And you can see the difference. It's sometimes you think, oh, I really like this person. We're going to become a good friend, whatever the case is, or a romantic partner. And then all of a sudden you see them when they've been drinking and it's just like, no, it can be a real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, especially in a country that has a real drinking culture like Australia as well.
I think that's a deal breaker for me. Number one is smokers.
I'm the same.
Absolutely no way. And smoking, vaping, no way. And then somebody that is a big drinker.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, no way. It just, yeah. Because it's also, I think, if people aren't caring, I'm so intentional about caring for my body because like you, as I was hanging yesterday and doing the 30-second hang from the bars at the gym, like, oh my gosh, this hurts so much. But no, like your hand grip is a sign of like for aging.
Longevity,
right?
exactly right.
So I'm going to hold on to this damn bar for 30 seconds. Right?
Yep.
I want someone that's going to match me there because it's like what you're looking for, I think, like second time round, later in life is quite different to when you're younger.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we're not looking at procreating or like...
No, I want a bit of peace and stability.
Absolutely. You want calmness.
Yeah.
You want and you want something. There was a great clip I saw.
I don't want overwhelm.
What's that?
I just don't want overwhelm.
No.
I just want peace and stability. Yeah.
Life is going to bring you whatever is. But,
absolutely.
Yeah. But there was this great clip with, I think it was Susan Sarandon that was talking about and they were talking about marriage and, the man said to her, "Oh, I think you're a romantic," and do you believe in the institution of marriage, right? And she said, "It's not about that." She said, "It's about having somebody to witness your life, right? It's having somebody that truly sees you, to know that you matter to that person." Right. And I think that's what people are looking for is to have somebody that is a witness to their life, like to come home and to have somebody that sees, hey, I see you, you've to sit, to share a movie with, it's actually really the simple things. It's not the big things.
I totally agree.
I went to a movie the other day with my son and it brought up conversations. It was a movie called, I think, The Invitation with Penelope Cruz.
Yeah.
And it starts with an open line.
She's one of my crushes, Penelope Cruz.
Yeah. Actually, you might enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
And it opens with a quote from Oscar Wilde that says, if you want to stay in love, don't get married. Right? And Penelope Cruz plays a sexologist and psychotherapist.
Okay.
And she does a brilliant job.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting at the end as I was watching the credits come through, and it said consultant or advisor was Esther Perel.
Oh, wow. Okay.
On it.
I saw her in London, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
And she's amazing.
Unbelievably. Yeah.
Right? And so she obviously was consulting or advising to Penelope Cruz. And
she's very blunt.
She was?
Yes, she's very blunt, Esther.
She's very blunt.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And Penelope was a very blunt psychotherapist. And, in this, without giving away what it was all about, but I said to my son, he said, Mum, I think, no, I'll just never get married. And I said, no. I said, it's not, let's get beyond marriage. I said, to have a person in your life, right? He said, but you and Dad, I said, but at one point we did love each other, right? And he's not a bad person. I have a huge respect for him. But life changes, people change. And he asked me, and he said, Mum, do you think you will ever, will things change for you? And I said, absolutely. I said, but I'm actually very much happy with myself and the relationship I have with myself. And what happens is you then attract the same into your life, right? Again, when you've done the work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But you have to work on that relationship with yourself first before you can truly open yourself to another relationship, a healthy relationship. Because if you don't, you're just going to repeat the same patterns.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. The work you specialize in, both male and female, usually very successful people, and just, I suppose, in some ways, just thinking something's not quite right, or something areas that I can improve on, or and as I opened up, I said stuff that I'm going through at the moment as well, where there's areas that I've identified of repeating the same habits or patterns, and I just don't want to keep repeating those patterns, to put it bluntly. And it's the type of clients who come out and meet you and speak with you. How do they find you? What is the process that you work through with them? And how does it work?
Yeah. So
because you're one-on-one, you're not couples, are you? Or do you do both?
I work with families.
Yes, okay.
So I have worked with a number of very high-profile families for quite some time.
Yeah.
My one-on-one work is typically word of mouth.
Yes.
Right? It's in order to come in to work with me, it's a certain type of person, right? So it's as much about them choosing me as me choosing them. Mm-hmm. So there's a process. Typically, the first entry point is a clarity session. So I have one of those today where I sit down with a person. I spend a few hours with them. There's an intake process before that where they give me a lot of information that I basically dissect, interpret, and then we do a deep dive.
Yeah.
And that deep dive is basically looking at the various parts of their life, their various parts of their back of house. Okay. And giving them a game plan as to how to move forward. So that's a discovery session and clarity session. From there, they either go off on their own and do the work, or they go into one-on-one work if I have the capacity at that time to take on a new one-on-one client, or they go into one of my groups that I run. So I typically have one or two groups that I'm running at any given time, which are online. In Australia, I have run one in person before. So that's the different ways that people can work with me. Clarity session, deep dive clarity session, one-on-one work, or in a group. And then I go in with organizations, and I'll go into organizations and I'll do work with teams, because just like a family is made up of various individuals, all right? A department, an organization is made up of various individuals and various identities. And so helping the individuals within that organization understand themselves better and how they then relate to each other within the organization is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
So I do that sort of work as well with organizations. But the majority of my work, I would say, probably 70%, 70 to 80% of my work is in the Northern Hemisphere. So not in Australia.
Yes.
Which is why I'm on planes all the time.
Yes. Yep.
Or doing late night calls.
There's nothing wrong being on planes all the time. I've been asked to hold it back a little bit because I've been on 3 overseas trips in this year alone, which I was just reminded of last night. So it's just like,
I think I've done about 12.
Yeah. Okay. So it's going up to Sydney for work because we have our Sydney office is different, but it's this recent trip was a week of work, but 4 weeks away. Yeah. So no, it's great.
But again, though, it comes back to like people say, oh, well, like you say, oh, that must be great to travel. Actually, it's hard work to travel.
It is, absolutely.
I'm in Hong Kong for 3 weeks.
Yeah. You're used to living in a hotel, but it's not all that much fun. No.
But, I travel every 3 weeks up to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I get in and I get out. I take an overnight flight. I do 3 days on the ground. I take an overnight flight back.
Yeah.
Right. I'm so intentional. But whenever I look at something, and that includes taking on a new client, starting a new group, taking on a corporate client, I look at the opportunity cost of it. Because when you say yes to something or to someone, you're saying no to something else.
Yeah.
So for me to say yes to come in and meet with you today, it meant I had to say no to a client. I had to say no to my boys.
Yes.
And so you have to weigh it up, right? And again, it's in when you have that clarity of self and clarity, you're not trying to prove yourself. You're not trying to, to hustle for your worthiness. It makes it much easier to make those decisions. If something doesn't align, you can say, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't fit. Move on.
Yep.
It's not about, you. This is about me and my needs. And I'm taking ownership of that.
Yep. I made a steadfast rule probably about 20 years ago that I would never work a weekend. And it's weekends were, my children are a lot older now, but weekends were for family, for children, for friends, for going and watching my stupid football team lose again. So it's, but and I had a prospective, very large client say, oh, can I see you on Saturday? And I said, no, I can't. It's family time. And it was interesting. He said, oh, well, it looks like I'm not going to be a client. I said, that's okay.
They're not the right client for you.
That's right.
But what you're doing there is setting those boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And see, if you had leaky boundaries there, chances are that those leaky boundaries would leak into other areas of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And it's I typically don't do calls after a certain time. But again, I'm always looking at, well, hang on a sec, how do I move it? I used to never work school holidays.
Yeah.
So everything was around my children. My kids are now older and we don't have to work around the school holidays all the time. So I manage around it. I am often doing trips next school holidays. My one son is still at school and I will piggyback that with another trip and take him somewhere in Asia while I'm already there. Yeah. So that's how I work because my children are my priority. And how that all works. But it's interesting too when you look at relationships and you go into new relationships and it's people bring different things to the table and people aren't just you get to a certain age and you're not like you've come straight out of the box and you have no baggage. It's like we all have stuff.
Absolutely.
We have ways that we do things, I'm up at 5, you're up at 5. Like that's how.
Well, if you're up at 5 and your partner doesn't like to go to bed till 3, that's going to cause an issue.
It's actually, and you don't find that out like straight away, right?
No, you don't. So
you
don't have a set of questions you ask on the first date.
Saying that, so for my clients I help with arranged marriages, I do actually.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's good. I should have that from now on. So,
all those hard questions that we need to ask because they can be deal breakers.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
But it's having when you go into a relationship again, when like what's a non-negotiable and also where are you prepared to bend?
Yeah, that was I had that thought in my head before, just in respect to. I'm very good with boundaries until I enter a relationship. And then all of a sudden my boundaries become quite blurry or, you've got that first 3 months of euphoric getting to know, well, obviously it's gone into it from a good day to 3 months. So if that's the case, but then it's just all the little things and you start to think, hold on a minute, I'm not getting up at 5 anymore, or why am I eating badly again, or why am I doing this? So all those things which were the boundaries, and you don't necessarily say hard boundaries, but flexible boundaries that all of a sudden you can end up losing your identity. And
Depends on the, like, I guess the opportunity cost of that.
yeah,
And I'd be looking at it and exploring that, because a relationship does take some bending.
absolutely.
Uh, if you're hard and fast on
Well, if every
everything,
person you start dating is like your ex, then it's just so okay, Justine. Just to end today, so we're just being given a hard cut short, so it's you do have to go. Just some quick rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Now, I do know you lived in Hong Kong for a good chunk of your life, but who's your football team?
I don't have a football team.
Okay, Essendon. They've only got room for improvement.
What colour are they?
Red and black, and the bottom of the ladder. They've only got room for improvement. You can't get any worse.
Okay. I'm going to be really, really. This is showing that I am not a hardcore Melbourneite. What sort of football is that?
AFL football.
That's
Australian
where they
rules
jump
football.
in the air and they wear the short shorts.
Tackle each other, shorty shorts.
A good friend of mine is John Revo.
Athletic muscular meat, yeah.
John Revo, Melbourne Store. And I remember I had a client once that came to me that was a
rugby.
footballer.
Yeah.
I had to call John and say, John, can you tell me a little bit about this person? Because without naming the name. And he said, okay, Justine, what football? I said, I don't know. He said, do you know what he wears? And I described it. He said, that's AFL.
The shorty shorts.
The shorty shorts. It's a no football team.
Okay, no football team. What's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning?
I stretch.
Yep, okay. Is that just because we're getting a little bit old now and everything hurts?
No, it's it's very intentional. It's opening myself up to whatever the day is going to bring. So I stretch, I have a glass of water, and I'll put my gym gear on and go to the gym.
Magnificent. And we will put your contact details on this so people can reach out to you. Your LinkedIn page is quite awesome. The information you provide on there too is fantastic, and even watching you play a guitar as well. So it is actually really good. So Justine, my friend, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me, Tony.
It.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
The Kofkin Bond podcast is a product from Kofkin Bond & Company, which we are an authorized representative of Count Financial. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional, finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decision, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from the podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Kofkin Bond website, or you can find resources on the ASIC website and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Kofkin Bond & Co. and the hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.